Welcome into It's Just Wrestling, your favorite or 10th favorite pro wrestling podcast. Back after a, 2-month long layoff. And boy, has the pro wrestling world changed since the last time I went live with this show. CM Punk came back. CM Punk is gone. Collision started. Collision ended. All In happened. All Out happened. A lot has happened. Jade Cargill left. Jade Cargill left AEW. I'm very upset. We'll talk about that as well. There's so much to get into, and I wanted to do this show with somebody who is local to where I am, and that is in the Philadelphia region. And we're coming off a day where the Philadelphia Phillies have advanced to the NLCS. We're coming off a day where the Philadelphia Flyers won their first game of the season, which is very interesting for the other show that I do. The Philadelphia Eagles are undefeated. The Philadelphia 76ers we're not going to talk about. And the Philadelphia Union look like they're going to go off to a nice postseason berth and hopefully do something there. I don't know. Maybe we can talk about the Sixers. I mean, I just who likes going back to the second round exit every week. I saw a tweet last night, by the way. You might get a kick out of this. Joel Embiid was in attendance at Citizens Bank Park, and somebody said,
yes, he was.
Embiid is there in person to see what it looks like to get out of the second round. So brutal, absolutely brutal.
Oh, man.
As you can tell, I'm not talking to myself. If you're watching on YouTube or on Facebook or on Twitter, you know that I'm not by myself. If you're listening in the podcast feed after the fact, that's fine too. But today I'm joined by JustJayBe. Of course, you can hear him. He's the host of Crew Talk, part of the Wrestling Crew, a.k.a. Real TWC. JustJayBe, thank you so much for joining It's Just Wrestling, which I'm sure is now becoming your 10th favorite pro wrestling podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, man. I really appreciate it. Let's get to it. Excited.
So we've had an interesting week here. I think interesting is a nice way to put it. So Fastlane happened, and then we knew that for over a week there was going to be a build to the Tuesday Night War, the first time that AEW and WWE product of any kind would go head to head since NXT moved off of Wednesday nights. And it lived up in a lot of ways to the hype. The WWE opted to bring in some legends. Paul Heyman in one corner, John Cena in another. Cody Rhodes making a major announcement. Not that we've ever heard that on AEW programming. And, Jade Cargill showed up. There's a lot. There was just a lot on the show. And of course, The Undertaker ended the show. So why the hell not? An absolutely wild sort of Tuesday night. Meanwhile, AEW brought in Ms. Bryan Danielson and Swerve Strickland to start off the show. We had Hangman Page in action against Jay White. Christian Cage cut a great promo to start, cut a great promo to end. Adam Copeland made his in-ring debut against Luchasaurus. One channel had like a 7-minute overrun. The other had like 15 minutes. One show took 30 minutes commercial free. The other went like 46 and a half minutes commercial free. JB, please, for the love of, just let the people know. What were you doing on Tuesday night, and did it live up to the hype for you?
Tuesday night was like a throwback for me. I grew up in basically like a preteen teen during the Monday Night War era. So that was for me, it was a throwback of just flipping back and forth. So for me, I was switching back and forth between NXT and AEW. I am naturally a WWE guy, but I loved, back in the day, I loved ECW, WCW. I watched WCW just as much, if not more, back in that era at times. So seeing AEW, come up has been great for the industry. So it was just a joy to just, okay, I'm watching NXT, and then I flip over to AEW and I see like Bryan Danielson taking on Swerve Strickland and everything like that, and it was a treat. It was a great night for the industry. It was a great night for the business.
Which one would you say that you focused more on? Is it
NXT.
Safe to say? Yeah, I was gonna say it's safe to say that you were at NXT. So this will actually play off well because I was more in on AEW.
Nice.
I have found myself as more of an AEW fan because I think I just enjoy the wrestling more, right? But I gave NXT a shot. I genuinely don't watch NXT. I get that there are upcoming stars.
I do.
So like,
yeah.
So like the Tiffany Strattons of the world, like I've seen a million clips, right? Braun Breaker, I've seen a million clips. Carmelo Hayes, I've seen a million clips. But I don't usually go out of my way to watch NXT. I like the idea of like get the polished product and then I'll watch them on the main roster. Or if there is a crossover, if there's a Becky Lynch against a Tiffany Stratton, I'll watch that. But like just in general, developmental, the same way that when AEW was doing Dark and Dark Elevation, you know, the first couple of weeks that the shows were real, I watched it. Otherwise, didn't really care all that much. So, all right, you were the NXT focus. I was the AEW focus. So, were you, when you saw Bryan Danielson and Swerve Strickland are starting it off hot on Dynamite, or I can go listen to Cody Rhodes perform verbal gymnastics, what did you tune into? Did you need to hear that major announcement? Did that get you more than the match on the other channel?
Oh man. Well, seeing Cody Rhodes back in WWE after co-founding AEW still blows my mind. I don't care what his legacy is or whatnot. Like just the fact that happened still blows my mind to this day. So that's first off. It was cool seeing Cody Rhodes open up NXT. You knew it was going to be for the Dusty tournament. It was just cool seeing a star like Cody Rhodes that they're, reigniting into stardom in WWE, big time, strapping a rocket to that guy right now. Seeing him on NXT on like their C show was pretty cool. But while he was talking, I did flip back to Bryan Danielson versus Swerve Strickland. I think Swerve has a lot of swag, and I didn't like when WWE was like released him and released a bunch of other talent and everything like that. I thought it was the wrong move. I love that he's thriving in AEW. I think I like his look, his theme song. I like Prince Nana with his little dance going on and everything. It's so funny. It's so funny. And seeing Bryan Danielson continue to thrive is great. So actually, I was, I think like once you said verbal gymnastics. Once it was pretty apparent that like, all right, this is a Dusty tournament, which is great, by the way, but It's been going on for years. Like, it's just that WWE's flexing their muscle by having Cody Rhodes, the son of Dusty, announce it. I get it. But actually, I was more intrigued by, in that particular time, I was more intrigued by Bryan Danielson versus Swerve.
And I don't want to crap on it. Like, it's not my thing to really crap on the product all that much because I think, like, first and foremost, the thing that I always come back to is I care about I genuinely care about like the health of these performers, their happiness, that like they get to go out and they do what they do, because when you're motivated and when you enjoy what you do, it's when you do your best work. And as a fan, that's all you can hope to have. So I wasn't going to make it a thing to crap on whatever I saw on NXT. That said, I'm not a Cody guy. All right, I think Cody,
you're not a Cody guy.
No, I think Cody in WWE is fine. I think he's better than he was when he was with AEW. But I don't need to listen to a Cody Rhodes promo for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or 15 minutes. Because it's largely the same thing every time. And he doesn't make me feel anything except largely annoyed when he starts to go on too long. And so I get it. I get yucking it up for the crowd. I was fine with that. I thought it was totally fine. But then it's like, all right, tournament. And we got another tournament. And we got this other tournament. But where I thought he did a very good job is when he got to play off other talent. And that, to me, is where Cody's at his best. I know that there are people who love the idea of Cody just in the ring by himself, speaking to the generations of professional wrestling and sports entertainment fans. I don't give a shit, all right? He ain't going to say anything that really gets my goat. But playing off of Dom Mysterio and playing off of Ilya Dragunov, I went, all right. I like where we're going here. I like how this looks. The mention of being the special GM for the night, I thought was dumb. I thought it felt like kind of hokey and a little bit unnecessary. But, okay, fine.
Yeah, I thought it was forced.
I thought that set the table. The problem I had was leading up to it, if you're a dirt sheet person, right? If you're following all of these accounts on Twitter, you saw the mention that, WWE sources said that what they're going to start with and what we're going to start with is going to show why one is WWE and one has a long way to go. And I sat back and I go, all right, I like the wrestling. I do like promos. I like promos that are delivered well. But I could see Bryan Danielson and Swerve, who's a fucking stud, all right? Mm-hmm. Swerve is a future world champion. And if he's not, someone needs to have their head dunked in a toilet for a while, right?
Mm-hmm.
Swerve looks like a champ. He carries himself like a champ. He's added muscle. He looks like a legitimate world champion contender, right? And he gets to go up against Bryan Danielson after not that long ago going out and beating Hangman Page, a former world champion on AEW programming at WrestleDream. He came out of that match, despite not going over, he got over. He looked excellent. And to me, there was no comparison. I had both screens going. I had both shows going.
Nice.
But like for me, that opening segment, that is what AEW can be at its best. A fantastic pro wrestling product with psychology that makes sense, with a well-paced match. That to me, I went, we're on to something tonight. The rest of the show didn't necessarily go the same way, but that part I liked. So where you mentioned that you were kind of upset at the time that Swerve got released by WWE. Were you a Swerve fan when he was with WWE? Do you feel like they missed an opportunity with him? Where do you land?
I think that I wasn't necessarily. I was more of like a casual Swerve fan. I think I would put myself in like a casual Swerve fan. Just want to put that out there. But I like what was going on with the. Of course, leaving my head right now with the group that they were. The group he was in. Oh my gosh, it's like.
Oh, with Top Dollar.
Yeah. I thought that was great. I thought that was fun. That was creative. I thought he showed a lot of prowess in the ring. I thought he had a lot of potential. I thought I just didn't. I was like, I don't think they released him and a lot of other talents too early. Prematurely. I'll put it like that. Not really much time to flourish and everything like that. So when that band of releases happened, and I believe that's when it was Vince still running wild, I believe, and everything like that. Yeah. And it's just like, all right. I was like, all right. Like, what are we doing here and everything like that. So that's like how I felt about, how I felt about all that.
Okay. I want to get back, I guess, to, we don't have to go segment by segment here. Mm-hmm. What stood out to you after we got past those initial openers? What stood out to you on the night? If you had to go back and say like, hey, here's one thing from each show that I liked, or like, here's like one thing that I thought like progressed the story well, or like, oh, that was a cool moment. You're like, I don't know, did the Undertaker coming out at the end and choke slamming Braun Breaker, make you feel warm and fuzzy? Did it set off the nostalgia? Did you feel like you were back in your preteen days? Like what was it for you?
I think for me, it was seeing the big guns interacting with the NXT talent, and them vibing off each other. I thought that was really unique and just really cool to see. So, seeing Cena co-sign Carmelo Hayes, I thought was really cool. Seeing Jade Cargill arrive, who they are, by the way, like they are making her a very, very big deal. Whew, man. So, seeing something I thought was really cool was, kind of still connecting the storylines from the Big Show from Monday Night Raw or WWE Raw, since they're thinking about moving it to another night, apparently. But
not a big fan. Not a big fan of moving off of Monday night.
I mean, we'll see. Okay. If they make it Wednesday, if they change it to Wednesday.
Did I just hear?
If they change it to Wednesday, where it's right head to head against Dynamite, that'd be pretty crazy. But other than that,
God, ladies and gentlemen, business has just picked up.
They do that, then we have something. But we'll see what happens. But anyway, back to that. Seeing like Paul Heyman talk to The Rock's daughter was pretty cool. That was some seeds planted. Whether anything actually happens or not, we'll see. But they knew exactly what they were doing with that happening. Seeing Paul Heyman and Braun Breaker, and Paul Heyman making the call to Roman Reigns after talking with Braun Breaker was pretty cool. So in a sense, it was cool seeing like the big all-time players, co-sign and kind of uplift and just give that shine a little bit to I don't want to say up and comers, because these people have been in there for a while, but I guess, the people that have been in the developmental system for a while, and, giving them that co-sign before they eventually launch off to the, main roster to what we hope, would be to launch the next generation.
Yeah, makes sense.
So, yeah.
I have to tell you, Paul Heyman obviously can do no wrong. I do have a question, just in general, and we can get off a Tuesday night here for a second. The Bloodline story. Now, I don't follow it religiously. I keep up with it. I keep up with it through social. I skip through shows to figure out what's going on and where it's heading. Mm-hmm. To me, it feels like a lot of the excitement, a lot of the must-watch element of the Bloodline story has tapered off pretty significantly here in the last month or so. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe you agree. You're more of a WWE locked-in guy. Like, Paul Heyman a month and a half or so ago said that they're only in the third inning. If that's the case, we're screwed. But he said that they're in the third inning. Cody Rhodes 2 weeks ago on Raw says, I don't think we're in the third inning anymore. Jey Uso's on one show. Jimmy Uso's on the other show. Solo's with Jimmy. Roman Reigns is MIA. Apparently going to start coming back around. Paul Heyman has gone fully gray. Appears stressed out. What is it like from your perspective when you're watching this? Do you just go, all right, I think that we still have something here? Or do you now just kind of go, shit, like, is this thing just starting to peter out a little bit?
I'll give you my pure, unadulterated, straight up opinion. The Bloodline should have ended at WrestleMania 39. I was there. The crowd was ready for the whole crowd was ready to pop like crazy for Cody. It was finish the story. It was everything like that. It was a lot of Bloodline gear and a lot of Cody gear like there. When the ending of that match was happening, the crescendo of KO and Zayn coming in to interfere, and then Cody about to deliver the third Crossroads. When the crowd was ready. It was, I don't know how uncensored we can get on here, but
you can do whatever you want. I think I already dropped a few, so go ahead.
The crowd got blue balled. The crowd got blue balled. I'm just gonna be honest with you. Now maybe that was, I get it. There's the alternative side, like, the guy just came back for a year. They're just gonna give the AEW guy beating the guy who they finally got over after 7 years of trying profusely to get Roman Reigns over. They finally do it, and they're gonna have the Cody Rhodes, who by the way I didn't take seriously back in the 2000s. I thought he was a joke at the time. He's proven me wrong, by the way. He has proven me wrong. Let me say this again. Completely proven me wrong. Cody Rhodes has made his turnaround, to me, has been incredible. But seeing they weren't going to finish the story that night. I thought that was the time to do it. And then ever since that night, especially since Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens beat the Usos for the titles, ever since that night, it hasn't quite been there. Now I will say the Bloodline Civil War, the inner turmoil with Jey and Jimmy and everything like that, that was cool. That was really awesome. And seeing Jey break away from the Bloodline, and the moment on SmackDown with him and Jey, and then Jey super kicking Roman Reigns and everything like that. That was amazing. That was great storyline television. But ever since,
there are great moments.
That was a great moment. So you have the WrestleMania 39. I thought, like, great moment the first night with the tag champs, and then Cody didn't win, but then the inner turmoil happening. Then after that, after the brothers kind of like split, ever since that particular moment, this storyline's been going on for 3 years. It has ups and downs. Right now, I think we're in a down period where they're kind of floundering to see where else they can, whatever they can do to get to the next, pinpoint of the storyline. And right now, I'm not quite feeling it. I think them with like Judgment Day is interesting because they're the two big factions in WWE on the main shows. So I think them talking is interesting, but it's probably just like it's filler. It's filler. It's just
it feels like I think you said there's a lot of treading water that's going on with that storyline. And at some point you do have to kind of sit back and go like, all right, like what is the ultimate return that we want to get here? Like what is the pinnacle of the story? And, you go back a month and a half ago, The Rock shows up at Colorado University, right? And he tells everybody that, a year before WrestleMania 39, there was a handshake deal. They toasted with what is it, Terramana, right? And, which does not sponsor this podcast, but is certainly welcome to sponsor this podcast at some point. He says that they had this deal in place for him to take on Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, and then they couldn't figure out how to make it work and how to do something that's never been done before. I have to tell you, there was leading up to WrestleMania, I thought, Roman just goes over. Like, it's fine. Just let him keep going. Because, again, like, Cody, I thought was a cool story, but I think a lot of what the plan for Cody might have been got derailed when he tore his pec. And while it was a really cool moment at Hell in the Cell, because he was gone for so many months, and because he came back as number 30 in the Royal Rumble, to me, I thought, like, this doesn't feel like a struggle. This feels like the guy had a hard time coming back, rehabbing. He worked his ass off. He showed up at the Rumble, and he won it. But it felt more like, wow, is Vince McMahon really going to take the guy that went out, co-founded competition, even if you don't consider it competition, whatever. I don't believe that, but whatever. Are they really going to have him be the one to end the reign? And I sat back and I said to myself, there's no way. But as Cody came down to the ring at 39, he goes over and he gives the belt. He gives the weight belt to Brody Jr., to Brody Lee's son. And I thought, oh, man, like that pulled at the heartstrings. I'm a dad. I got 4 kids. I don't know. That's a lot. It's a lot of kids. And I don't know, like sometimes I get a little bit sappy with this stuff. But I went, man, I don't know. Could you possibly have him lose after you see something like that? And then they did. And when it happened, the best comparison that I can think of, like when I think about the air leaving a building, where you go, are you fucking kidding me? Was I was at Arthur Ashe for the first Grand Slam that AEW did. And the first match of the night was the in-ring debut of Bryan Danielson taking on Kenny Omega. And when that show started, I thought, there's no way they're going to start with that match. Why would you? You build to a main event.
Right.
AEW doesn't always do that. They like to sometimes start with the big thing and then the rating tapers off. But when it happened, the energy in Arthur Ashe was insane. I had never been part of a wrestling atmosphere like that. I was sitting up in like the nosebleeds. And I was just happy to be there. I was with a buddy of mine who is not a wrestling fan at all. But he's like, yeah, I'll go with you. And he got taken in that moment. Like, holy shit, like these people are not, like, this is awesome. Like, what an atmosphere. He's a big hockey fan. I'm a hockey guy too. So like you understand like playoff hockey atmosphere. There's a lot going into that. Playoff games.
Hockey's crazy.
We're both like from this Philly area, right? You get a raucous Philly crowd going. Like there's something to that. Arthur Ashe felt like that. And so you go through the whole match and it feels like this big moment. Like, oh my God, AEW, like they put themselves on the map. How are you gonna get through this match? And then it ends in a draw. It ends in a half-hour draw. And when it happened, when the bell rang, the entire place went from this massive crescendo to subito piano. We were all the way down. Almost a whisper. And then it became like a murmur and what the hell was that? Like, did they really ring the bell? And then they announced that it's a time limit draw. You go, that can't be how this ends, right? There's no way. That to me is what it sounded like on TV, and you were there, so I'm sure you could speak this. But like when Roman beat Cody at 39, that to me, it's like that. It felt like that same feeling. All of the air was just sucked out of, in that case, the stadium.
Yeah.
I don't know how you get it back to that point because I'm not so sure that you've been able to build Cody back up. And I don't know if you're ever going to make Cody as hot as he was going into Mania.
And that is exactly, man, that's exactly what me and my fellow crew members were talking about. We felt that like there was a moment like where you strike where the iron's hot, and maybe you can build it back, but that right there was maybe the perfect possible moment. And let's see how they're gonna try to reignite it, but I'm not sure they can do that. It was the crowd was ready for it. I'll just say that. But it is what it is. We'll see. We'll see. I know a lot of people. I'm just gonna say I'm a massive rock fan. But I if he comes back, cool. If not, cool. That's where I'm at with it. I don't think they need to put all their chips in him coming back. Obviously, he's in demand in other places. So we'll see what happens. I hope with Cody right now. I know he's a tag champ with Jey. I think that's cool, but let's see what happens. Mania season's about to kick up in a couple months, so we'll see where it goes.
It's interesting. Like the Cody and Jey thing is fun because in the post show scrum at Fastlane, Cody and Jey were, well, at least Jey seemed pretty blitzed. I think Cody admitted to having a few. We got Yeats. We had Yeats out. We had Jey Uso looking like he was getting himself lost, like when they used to kick people off of American Idol and like they'd start going through the wrong curtain or whatever. You like watch Hell's Kitchen and Gordon Ramsay sending somebody off and they turn back to the kitchen. Hey, the door's over there, jackass. Let's go. Let's get that right. Yeah. And so like I sat back and I'm like, I'm into this. I will watch this. I think this is great. Right. So Jey Uso is blitzed out of his mind. Cody, there's the moment where Jey goes like, "You feel me?" to the writer, and Cody just goes, "Do you feel him, sir?" I'm like, now if we could bottle this, I will take this for the next few months. I'll even take this to a Royal Rumble, right? But eventually we have to presumably get to a point where Jey betrays Cody and realigns with the Bloodline, right? Like, I know that there are people who want to see Jey and Jimmy at WrestleMania.
They
think that that's a big thing. But I'm not so sure, right? Like the ultimate struggle here, if you're going to try to heat Cody back up, is let Cody and Jey do this thing through, I don't know, like let's say January, February, right? Because Mania is in April, right?
Yep.
So have it go January, February. Things are looking great. And then Jey turns on Cody, whether it's because they lose the tag titles or they lose the tag titles because Jey turns on Cody, and that just is how it goes. Like maybe they face Jimmy and Solo, and Jey essentially like lays down, or gets out of the ring and walks out on Cody, and like that's how you can heat Cody back up. I just don't know if you're ever going to get him back to the level that he was at before. The only thing I could think, you have them lose those belts in January. Cody goes away. He comes back. He's the number one entrant into the Royal Rumble. Right? And then you go, all right, he's got to fight his way from the bottom to make his way to the top. And then you try. But I don't know if that guy exists. I don't know if they have. If you even wanted to pivot away from Cody Rhodes and you brought The Rock back, would The Rock get to that fever pitch level that Cody was at last year? I'm not so sure. It's a different kind of pop. It's a different kind of interaction with the fans.
Yeah, in terms of, well, one is The Rock, so it'll get a reaction. But in terms of what Cody, the unique story of the guy coming back who had no value whatsoever, The Rock already has value. So in terms of like what you just said, like Cody coming back with absolutely like with renewed value, renewed sense of superstar potential, coming back from the enemy that he founded. And then coming back to the company that didn't give two shits about him still blows my mind. But anyway, that is a different type of story than like the Rock, who, by the way, we all can agree for this Bloodline storyline, that's why people want The Rock back, because it actually makes sense. Who's the one guy who actually can tell Roman, know your role and shut your mouth and sit down? The Rock can, and it wouldn't be like an unbelievable thing. We'd be like, yes, everyone knows The Rock's greater than Roman Reigns. Like that's not no brainer, no matter how long Roman Reigns has had the title. So it would actually make for some good, TV, good storyline. But I don't know. It'd be kind of like a different animal. But the thing with Cody was organic. It was more organic and special. I will say that. So it'd just be different. I agree.
There's one thing that I think bothers me. It's not going to unbother me. I don't have a way to not be upset about it. Is The Rock shouldn't have come back like he did. It was a fun one-night pop. And in a vacuum, you say, hey, that's great. But that also is my phrase, cognitive dissonance. You look at it and you say, like, there are two things that are happening here, and they don't line up, and it doesn't make sense.
Right.
Why would The Rock come back and not address what's going on with his family, right? All right, you're part of the Bloodline. The Usos are split. There are rifts in the family. Paul Heyman is there. I don't remember if Roman was on that show or not. But you have this ability to bring him back to be one of the elders. It's the thing that, to me, they have missed the boat on every time. Solo Sikoa was allegedly sent by the elders to make sure that the bloodline is kept safe and sound all together. Where the fuck have the elders been? Do they exist? Are they real? They're nowhere to be found. You would think that while the Usos were starting to pull apart, and when it looked like Sami Zayn was maybe driving a wedge between the Usos and Roman Reigns, that an elder would have shown up, perhaps a Rikishi. Just throwing that one out there. Rikishi, I can't imagine it's going to be as hard to get as The Rock. They didn't do anything with it. The Rock shows up. He doesn't address what's happening with his family. Now, I have a hard time, just if we're playing the kayfabe game here, I just don't see how that works. It didn't make sense to me. I thought it was a really cool one-night pop. It's great. But it's so against the way I think that
the overall storyline
and have him involved in it. So that to me is a big issue, and I don't know how you get things back on track without involving the elders, which is where I forget which pay-per-view it was, not that long ago. Sorry, premium live event.
PLE.
Where they did the tribal combat match between Roman and Jey. Well, okay, tribal combat. One would think that perhaps the elders would be in attendance to make sure that tribal rules are upheld. Nothing. So
we'll see where it goes, man. I will say it's definitely the most ambitious storyline over the past, like, in a long time. It's definitely, I think there needs to be it, but I will agree with you. There needs to be an end game with this. And, with apparently Vince out, because, he's had a huge, power crush on Roman Reigns, trying whatever it takes to get that man over. Now Roman Reigns is finally over, and he's his reign is his title reign that he doesn't really defend the title that much, but he's nearing Hulk Hogan's. I don't know if he's going to beat Hulk Hogan's record. He was champ for like a little over 4 years, but I guess that's the last thing, because I can't see it go longer than that. I can't see them, that he would have to be champ past WrestleMania to get to that length of reign. So I would think there's an end game with this, but we'll see what happens. I think you hit on some really good points there. Where else can this go? I actually have a question for you, if that's
Heck yeah, man, let's go.
What do you think about? All right, what do you think about LA Knight? What do you think about the? We said who could? Who do you think could? You asked, like, who could kind of replace if Rock and Cody's kind of floundering. There's a guy who they're really pushing right now, giving him a Slim Jim marketing. They paired him up with John Cena, a guy who WWE is clearly promoting as their greatest of all time right now. I think it's going to be Roman Reigns in a couple years. You know how they do. They clearly are giving the rub to LA Knight. Do you think you're going to shotgun LA Knight?
No.
Okay.
I just wanted to hold that. I just want to have an awkward pause. No, the thing that's weird about the LA Knight thing is I think he's fun. I think he's totally fine. I think it's great that he's found something that works. I know that Kevin Nash, hates what LA Knight's doing.
I don't know what's going on with that. That's some. I love Kevin Nash, but I don't know with that personal. I don't know what's going on with that.
Yeah, and I mean, and then LA Knight did the veiled shot at Adjective versus Verb in a promo, which I thought was great, very very crafty. Here's the thing, right? If I'm gonna buy into somebody being a star, do they have charisma? Well, LA Knight does. Does he have presence? Does he have the body? Does he have the look? He does. Does he have the music? I think so. I think the music's a little bit wonky, but I'm here for it. Does he have the catchphrase? Yes. Does he have the speech pattern to make it work? And does he hold the audience? He does. So by all those metrics, LA Knight is a star. But do I see LA Knight as a world champion? I do not. And that's not a bad thing. You don't have to make every wrestler who goes on a run the champion. Mm-hmm. Like, if you think back, let's play back to Attitude Era times, right? Mm-hmm. Scott Hall was one of the most over stars in WCW, in the NWO, I mean, he was great as Razor, right? But like, as I was growing up in the Monday Night Wars, Scott Hall to me was like the best non-world champion ever. And I would still say he probably will go down as that.
Definitely. Top 3 easily. Yeah.
And he was over as hell. Now, was it because he was part of the NWO? Sure. But on his own, he was fantastic.
Yep.
If you look at the WWF at that time, I mean, yes, Mankind eventually wins the world title, but he didn't need to be in the world title picture. The Undertaker was fantastic. Didn't need to always be in the world title picture. I think that the thing that WWE struggles with is building stars that feel like stars when they're not chasing the title. And that to me is like where there's just this really big gap. I think that they're clearly doing good things with the Romans of the world, with the Codys of the world, Seth Rollins. I think that they've done a good job in trying to like elevate Shinsuke after they like discarded him for so long. Anytime Lesnar comes back, he's a star. Fine. But who are the next stars? Or who are their contemporaries who are made to feel that important? Does Finn Balor feel as important? Does AJ Styles feel as important? And I'd say no. I don't necessarily think that they feel like guys who you would think are credible threats to win. Certainly not Roman's title, but even Seth's title. Like I don't think that they've done a good enough job of building a threat. Like, let me throw a name to you. Bobby Lashley. Could Bobby Lashley be a guy that you could build a stable around like it looks like they're trying to do and build Bobby Lashley into a championship threat to Seth Rollins? Like, would that do it for you?
With that, could they do it? Yes. Would that, in my opinion, yes. Especially with whatever they're trying to do for that new stable. By the way, I hope that I put a poll on the account about what the stable name should be because they haven't done it yet. I'm a big proponent for calling them Black Wall Street. So we'll see what happens. There's no way they're going to do it, but they need to come up with a name soon. But I think that they could do that. But personally, I'm a big Montez Ford guy. I want to see Montez Ford rise. I think he checks off a lot of boxes, and I've been saying it for a couple years now. I think him and Bianca would be an amazing power couple in the company. They can pivot, create. Bianca Belair is already a star, but like they could elevate Montez Ford, and bam, you have a new dynamic there. But anyway, yeah, I think they could do Bobby Lashley, but I would rather have it Montez Ford.
So that actually does lead to, I think, a pretty interesting thing here. So again, like I kind of lean AEW, you lean more WWE. That's what makes today's episode work so well. When I look at both companies, I come back to this idea of, all right, if we're building to the future, and you think about like who can actually be a star. I led off the show as saying I think Swerve Strickland has the ability to be a legitimate world champion for AEW.
Yep.
If Swerve were to do that, were to win the title, and then eventually went back to WWE, I think it would transfer very well. I think that Swerve has done enough now to build himself into being that kind of guy. When I look at AEW, I think that they have a bunch of guys who in theory should be in the main event picture that aren't. A Miro, who's fantastic. I look at, now when I think about who could be in the future, who should be a future world champion, I look at Powerhouse Hobbs, the guy who just looks like a truck.
He's a beast.
He's an absolute beast. And now he's aligned himself. He's now part of the Callis family. So you got him. You got Sammy Guevara, who I think has a concussion right now. You have Will Ospreay is affiliated. You have Konosuke Takeshita. And I look and I go, all right, I don't need everybody who's in AEW to look or to come off like somebody who would work in WWE. I think that you can swim in different ponds, but it's about in your organization, could you rise to the top? And I think that right now AEW for all the flaws, and there are many flaws, they have more guys to me that I can say, yes, I would theoretically build around this guy for the next few years. I could see Takeshita growing into a world champion, Powerhouse Hobbs, Swerve Strickland, without a doubt. And then I look at WWE and I go, Montez Ford, that's one. And then I'm lost because I don't see it. Like, is Dom Mysterio a future world champion? I don't think so. I think that he should be like an intercontinental champion level guy.
Which is not an insult. There's nothing wrong with that. That's nothing wrong with that. Prestigious belt. Yep.
But I think that that's part of the struggle. I think that that's ultimately where I wonder if WWE in this, end of year, there's the rumor that they're going to try to poach people. Could they try to poach a Powerhouse? Could they try to poach a Ricky Starks?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what does that look like? When you think about star power, when you think about, building for the future. I just don't know if WWE's done a good enough job with it. Except for the show that we let off talking about, which is NXT.
Mm-hmm.
If it were you, and I want you to put on your Booker hat. Okay? You have your Phillies hat on, but I want you to put on the Booker hat. You put it over top. Not the Booker T hat. Would you, if you had to, you have to make a choice. There's no in between here. There's no sitting on the fence.
Okay.
We've demolished the fence here at It's Just Wrestling.
Okay.
You have to go into the next 5 years with one of these two guys as your champion. Montez Ford or Braun Breaker.
Okay. That's tough, man. All right.
Because I'm going to hit you with another one after this, but go ahead.
All right. Montez Ford or Braun Breaker. Mm-hmm. No on the fence, because I could say good stuff about both of them.
Nope.
All right.
I've broken this man.
All right. I'm still going to rock with Montez Ford.
Okay.
I'm going to rock with Montez Ford.
Here's
why.
I agree with you for what it's worth.
Here's why. I think he has the athleticism. He has good ring prowess. I think he has. I think he needs to calm down with his mic work a little bit in terms of how hyped he gets. But I think it's there that he can definitely once he finds footing with a good lane in terms of gimmick. I think he has the ability to really ride with that. And I think he has the look. I really think he checks off all boxes. He knows how to interact with the crowd. There was also a period where they were definitely trying to see what he could do in singles matches, and I think they backed off for whatever reason. I don't know why. It was definitely a string of Monday Night Raws where they definitely were seeing how he was engaging with everybody as a single wrestler. So I know that they've been thinking about it, but I think that I think I would definitely go with Montez over Braun.
Okay. So let's imagine that we've now put Montez on the Roman Reigns track. So he's got that title. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Well, we have the World Heavyweight Championship, and Seth Rollins can't hold it forever.
Right.
Of Braun Breaker or Carmelo Hayes, who do you book around for the next 5 years?
Based on what I've seen, Carmelo Hayes.
Wow. Okay.
I think Carmelo Hayes has a lot of potential. Now, this isn't a diss on Braun Breaker. I think Braun Breaker's been groomed really well. He's realistically he's going to be a future world champion. They put too much into him. So outside of this box he created, he's going to be a world champion. But I think that Carmelo Hayes, Carmelo Hayes, I think has a lot of potential too. And I think that, okay, I have to think about this again.
Look at this.
I have to think about this
again. I've broken this man again.
I'm switching.
Oh,
I think I'm
he's
switching.
tucked himself into Braun Breaker.
I actually think it's Braun. Maybe it has to be Braun Breaker. I think Braun Breaker's had. This is tough, man. These are two great talents. It's great talents.
I like what I've done here.
It's two great talents, man. It's a good question. I don't think I'm broken, but I think that it's good. It's two great talents. I think it's like a hair follicle. I would actually switch and maybe go Braun Breaker. Yeah.
Okay. I'll take it.
Yeah. Braun has some things to improve on too. But that's why he's in NXT. He has to find his footing between whether or not he's a better heel or a better face. I like how he's taken his father's, how he's taken Rick's, whole, dog pound thing and everything like that. That's cool. But he needs to be able to stand on his own without that too.
Just like his uncle Scott Steiner, man. The voice is spot on.
Right.
It's freaky.
Yeah, man. So yeah, that was good. That was a good. I'm also naturally indecisive, as people know about me. So, yeah, but that was good, man.
So in your power rankings that we just came up with here on It's Just Wrestling, just for fun, we've now had you've now led yourself into Montez Ford, Braun Breaker, Carmelo Hayes. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think it's good. Hey, let's try to do something here at the end of the show. All right. I'm going to try to say something nice about WWE, and you're going to try to say something nice about AEW. Now, I want you to think for a second, and I'll do the same here, and I'll try not to stall too much as I'm mentally doing gymnastics in my head thinking about this one. Give me something that you are the most excited for from the AEW product, and I'll give you something I'm most excited about when I think about the WWE product.
Oh, MJF. MJF is a MJF. I held a poll on Real TWC about how where in terms of like success level where he can go. Right. It had a lot of different responses and everything like that. But I think where I lie with it is I think he's already one of the best heels there's been a lot of great heels, but you can argue he's a top 10 heel ever right now. I said maybe, but I would put him in top 20. That's pretty good. That's insane. He's only 27 years old. That's insane if you want to really think about that. I think he has I look at him and I think he has it. I think he has the mic skills. I think he has the personality. I think he's able to get certain moves over. That's a telltale sign to me. AEW needs to do everything that they possibly can to have him not go to WWE. If they want to actually compete, they need to have a homegrown guy like that and have him be the Sting. What Sting was to WCW, you need to have MJF be that for AEW.
That was a very nice thing. I think MJF's fantastic. I'm not totally sure about the direction right now, especially with Adam Cole hurt.
Yeah.
If he's hurt, or does it work? Can't wait to find conflicting reports on it for the next few weeks until we actually see a video of him having his ankle cut open on a surgery table, or maybe in November at Full Gear we see him come out and reveal himself as the devil, or was it Britt Baker? Who knows? I don't know, guys. He's fantastic. I mean, he absolutely takes, I think, any wrestling fan back to the heyday of like what the hottest time was, at least for people presumably our age who were Attitude Era kids.
Right.
He's about the closest thing out there. Like if you want to talk about LA Knight before, about the kind of run that he's gone on and how he's gotten over, and you compare it to MJF, it's a very different way of getting over. It's a very different way of holding the crowd in the palm of your hand, but like they've both managed to do it. Now, some, of course, like Evan Nash, will argue that LA Knight is just recycling things, while MJF seems to be a little bit more original, but you can also make the case that MJF to some extent is stealing bits of Piper and stealing bits of Flair. The thing is, and this is the one issue I take with any of that kind of comparison, is you have to. Like, that's just part of any business, of any industry, of any entertainment. There is nothing original, right?
Nope.
Like, everything is influenced by something else. It has to be. So, all right, so you said MJF is your positive. My positive for the WWE is that I think as a whole, the move to Triple H taking over, if we are to believe that he really has, is going to be beneficial for that company in more ways than any one talent could. If they are going to start to lean more and more into this idea of NXT being a legitimate third brand, then that to me is something that you absolutely have to keep an eye on. Because if they were to go back to doing what they did a few years ago at Survivor Series, right, where it was Raw versus SmackDown versus NXT, if you're going to do that, and you're going to start having crossover where your young, performance center ready people are going to, take on people who are on the main roster, if you can kind of balance things out a little bit, make it feel less developmental and a little bit more of that crossover, the showcase for the young performers, that's great. Now, as I've said that, I've since punched myself in the head and said, don't be a weenie, pick a person, since you did, and I've got that star. That star is Jade Cargill, who I have been effusive in my praise of since she burst onto the scene in AEW. I think the fact that AEW, Tony Khan said in the post-show presser at Wrestle Dream that, they were working on an extension, they were working on negotiating, that they went back and forth. He eventually offered her more than she asked for, all that, and it came down to the wire, and she chose to leave. I'm sorry. That is the second time now that you have allowed somebody to come down to the wire who's made that jump. Cody was the first, and Jade is the second. And the interesting thing is, I did not like what Cody did in AEW for the most part. I thought taking himself out of the world title picture was stupid. I thought it was short-sighted. I thought that it was just genuinely a dumb thing to do, and it hindered his ability to feel like a top player. He has a lot of people in AEW who were part of the Nightmare Factory, who were people that look up to him, who saw how he was presented, and are going to certainly consider the jump. Jade Cargill, to me, is like the absolute no-brainer. Obviously, people think that Ricky Starks could be somebody who would. I don't think Ricky works in WWE the same way. I don't think that they're going to put him in a world title picture thing just because he's a smaller guy. I just don't see it. I think Ricky Starks is fantastic. I think that in AEW, he makes all the sense in the world. In WWE, not so much. Wardlow, I don't know where he goes or how it works. Does it work? He could work well. But
what happened with That was actually sorry to interrupt. What happened with Wardlow? He was over as hell. Then
this is what happens. This is, when I said before about those warts that AEW has, all those issues. This is one of them. They get somebody white hot, and then they go away. They have somebody get pushed to the moon, where the fans are just falling over themselves, and then it just dies. Wardlow is not the first. He won't be the last. It's happened with Darby Allin. It happened with Orange Cassidy. It happened with Ruby Soho for a bit there. It happened certainly with Britt Baker. It happened with Tony Storm. Like it happened a million times now with FTR, where they were on these like generational title runs, and then you wouldn't see them for like a week. You wouldn't see them for 2 weeks. You have 3 shows. These people should be getting showcased. So that's a big part. Wardlow now has re-debuted, and he's powerbombing people and just walking out through the crowd and everything, and that's great. But there are times that I look at it and I wonder if he's genuinely pissed off with how they've squandered him a few times. The thing that the only time that I genuinely do feel better about some of these young talents in AEW, about their ability to like stick around and to get time, is when I see them aligned in a faction, because like Powerhouse aligning with Don Callis is great, like I said earlier, because Don Callis is going to be on TV, and as long as he's on TV and Powerhouse is associated with him, we're going to see the man. We're going to see Takeshita. If Ospreay ever actually does make the full jump from New Japan to AEW, we're going to see Ospreay all the time. And I think that's great. And again, you have 3 shows. You have to showcase these people, and you have to keep bringing people back and back. For as much as people didn't like, and if we go here, this is going to take a bit, but for as much as people didn't like what happened with Punk, with the creation of Collision and the soft roster split, that roster split made you say, I can watch the Elites camp on Wednesday, and I can watch the Punk camp on Saturday, and it felt unique, and it felt different, and it felt like something that you had to go out of your way to watch. And since Punk has been fired, Collision is still a good show in some ways, but it has absolutely lost a ton of the momentum that it had, and it's lost a lot of that feeling special, like it needs to be must-watch. And I don't know, as is the case with some of these wrestlers, when you say, like, what happened to them, I don't know if there is a way to get that back for Collision, because the longer they take to get it feeling special again, the more it's going to feel like Rampage, and it's going to feel like not something you have to pay attention to. So, I don't know if you kept up at all with what happened with the Elite and with Punk, and if you took a side in it, but I would certainly throw that to you before we wrap up today, if you had some general thoughts on it.
I think that I've had kind of a high level overview of what happened in regards to the Elite and Punk. Look, I have had, with my fellow, crew members and everything like that, and other people I watch wrestling with, I've had my opinions about CM Punk over the years that are complex. I kind of can understand. To me, CM Punk is the megastar that never was. Wow. I'll put it like that. I think people think CM Punk is bigger than he. I think there's people who think that CM Punk is bigger than he thinks he is, and here's people who think CM Punk is bigger than he actually is. If that makes any sense. Back in 2011, when the pipe bomb happened, I legit thought, I was like, oh, this is. It felt like I was like, oh, we're going to be ushered into a new boom period. This is it. Like that's how I felt about Punk around that time. But even then, he didn't. He obviously had his moments against The Rock and against Cena. He has his long world title reign and everything like that. But it didn't fully materialize to where I think it could have gone. And ever since then, when he left in 2014 and everyone wanted him back, there was that moment, everyone was crying when he came back in AEW in Chicago. It was awesome, amazing, all-time pop, amazing moment. But then once again, I remember I was debating with people. People thought oh, this is going to launch AEW in the mainstream against WWE. They're done. It's over. And I'm like, I like CM Punk. I think he's a great wrestler. One of my favorite matches all time is Punk versus Lesnar at SummerSlam 2013. Punk carried the shit out of Lesnar in that match. I think Punk is an all-time talent. But I think that a lot of people who love him, really love him, and think he's bigger than what he was, bigger than what he is. That's my opinion about CM Punk. So, some people will look at that as hate. Other people will look at that as two things can be true. So I think with that said, in Punk's head, he probably thinks, he can get away with some things or treat people differently because of how he views himself. And on the other side, it's you're not that guy, man. So hope that made sense.
Look at that. It did.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to say this. This could be my last thought on the show today. I think that what you've seen in the last 8 months, 10 months, is indicative of what has gone wrong with AEW and why I'm skeptical that they're going to be able to get back the momentum that they had for so long. So when I said before that one of the best things about WWE is Triple H taking over, the worst thing to ever happen to AEW other than COVID was Vince McMahon being forced to step aside. Because the one thing that Tony Khan had going for him was that he was much more likable, he was social media literate, he felt like he was taking on the giant. And it didn't matter that it was WWE, it was that he was taking on Vince McMahon. Not a lot of people like Vince McMahon.
Yep.
And the second that changed, people liked Triple H more than they liked Tony Khan.
Because Triple H is likable.
And what we saw this week when Tony Khan went on a Twitter rant was the more he tweets and the more he talks, the less likable he becomes to wrestling fans. Now, I say that while also acknowledging that many of the wrestlers say great things about him. And we do have to acknowledge the fact that he started this company. I still really like AEW. But you have to, at some point, it's not even a matter of showing restraint. You have to realize that there's a law of diminishing returns on some of this stuff. And him going ham like he did, where he really went after this Tuesday Night War that they did not win. It was 900 whatever thousand to 609,000 or whatever, right? You talked a big game, you stacked the card, you did your thing. And in a vacuum, you say AEW was great that night. It's fantastic. If you're an AEW fan, it was a really good episode of Dynamite. And him being pushed by NXT being on the other channel made him better, made him book better, made him put together a better show than we've seen probably since NXT went to another night. But the more he tweets and the more he comes off like a petulant child, the worse things are going to be. Him tweeting that a decades-long streak about The Undertaker and John Cena not being on a show with 1 million viewers and whatever in the demo, that was a fucking stupid tweet. And,
it was ridiculous.
And listen, you can be a multi-billionaire and you can have all the money in the world and you can buy wrestlers and you can build whatever product. But the fact remains that the fans are going to vote with their remote and they're going to vote with their wallet.
Yep.
And in large part because Tony Khan was unable or unwilling to get the Elite and CM Punk on the same page to do business.
Exactly.
That has been exactly, the timeline does not lie, that has been the moment that the momentum largely swung away from AEW. Because the one thing that divide did was it took the tribalists of AEW who were used to fighting against Vince McMahon,
Yep.
and it made the tribalists turn on each other into the Punk and CM and into the Elite camp. And once that happened, you had diminished what Punk was, and you had diminished what the Elite were, and none of them have found the same level of engagement or the same level of ratings that they had before Brawl Out. And the inability to address that, the inability to get those guys to do business, not only did it hurt the ratings, not only did it hurt each of them, it also led to some of the locker room bullshit that we saw, where you have a guy like Jack Perry think that he can go off on a pay-per-view or the buy into a pay-per-view and take a shot at one of the biggest stars in the company, who happens to be a hothead and isn't going to take that shit well. Not resolving some of those other issues led to that kind of issue, which ultimately led to a thing that Punk should not have done and was wrong for doing. And now that guy's gone. And I'll throw this back to you, because this is where I'm at. I think that if we ultimately never see, and it doesn't look like we will, if we never end up seeing CM Punk or CMFTR take on the Elite, it is the most disappointing what if since the failed invasion angle of WCW into WWF.
Whoa, that is a big statement, man. Oh, okay. I think that's one of them. In terms of, wow, that actually for modern times, for realistic things that for realistic matches with straight up real heat that could actually happen, I agree with you that's the top of the list. Definitely. That would be something to see. However, there is one thing that I wish that we'll never see, that I really, really would think would be amazing. And that is Triple H versus Cody Rhodes after, with Cody Rhodes destroying the throne, there's a lot of they could go off that. That would be an amazing. I always thought that would be an amazing storyline with some actual heat and actual bring out some really, really get Cody to really bring out some feelings during promos with that. But that's never going to happen. Triple H can't wrestle again.
No.
So with what outside of that, I agree with you. Bullseye with that. So I think
and it's a shame, but you know what? I'm not going to let it bother me. You know why? Because it's just wrestling. It's
exactly.
Okay. We'll figure it out. Hey, I appreciate you joining me today. Of course, as I said at the start of the show, JustJayBe. You can find him with Crew Talk, on Crew Talk, part of the Wrestling Crew, aka Real TWC. JB, let the people know where they can find you and where they can find the show.
Thank you so much. Just want to say thank you so much. I appreciate it. You can find us on Instagram at RealTWC, YouTube at RealTWC. New episodes of Crew Talk are on our YouTube channel at RealTWC. We're on TikTok at RealTWC. You can find us anywhere at RealTWC. TWC stands for the Wrestling Crew, not to be confused with the other amazing account, the Wrestling Classic. The Wrestling Crew is me, Carlton, Sharif, and we love to shoot the shit about pro wrestling, get into debates, bring the smoke. Anybody that's on Crew Talk can drop some. We've had some amazing guests, and take a listen. We're also on SoundCloud. You can find us on SoundCloud for Crew Talk audio episodes, but in terms of visual, YouTube, and you can see us debate, see hot takes dropped, see a lot of introspective thoughts about the world of wrestling. And thank you very much. Really appreciate you for having me on.
Absolutely. So folks, thanks. Oh, folks feels old. All right, squad, we're going to roll out here. Thanks for checking out It's Just Wrestling, your new favorite or 10th favorite pro wrestling podcast. For JB, I'm Russ. You can find me on Twitter if you so choose at Joy on Broad, where I bring some thoughts about the pro wrestling. Or you can interact on Twitter at It's Just Wrestling, but there's no you in just, because for some stupid reason I thought that was a great idea. They have that limited characters thing on Twitter for handles, which I think is silly. But It's Just Wrestling. Just take the you out of just. We can interact there. We're on YouTube, youtube.com/@It's Just Wrestling Pod. On TikTok, on Instagram, on Facebook. You can see all of those at the top of this video. You can find them in the description of the episode in the podcast feed and on YouTube. So for JB, I'm Russ. Thanks again for listening, maybe even watching. It's Just Wrestling. We'll talk to you soon.